nervous because I'm here now.
Hey guys, welcome into another episode of 410 Sports Talk. I'm James Haskell, along with my co-host Glenn Martin. Really excited to get into the recap of the Ravens' 40-14 victory over the Jacksonville Jaguars. Really excited to talk about this. But if you're new to the channel, go ahead and take a second, hit subscribe. Make sure you turn your notifications on so you're up to date on all of our breaking news, recaps, and previews of all the Ravens game. So without any further ado, let's get into some stats here, Glenn, and then we'll get into some health, and then we'll get into our comments about the game. Actually,
yeah, I'm going to start.
Hold on a second.
Yeah.
We got news.
Go ahead.
Our challenge of the week. I totally forgot. I was about to skip it.
Yeah. I mean, we're going to have to put Daniel in the Hall of Fame, Jimbo.
Seriously. My goodness.
Daniel Kunimoto again knocks it out of the park, predicts that Hollywood will be our leading receiver, despite the fact that Hollywood was forced to miss all week in practice, being on the COVID-19 list. Daniel has not lost a challenge yet. We started this challenge 3 weeks ago. He's 3 for 3. So yeah, shout out to Daniel. And was there anyone else?
Yeah, one more. Maureen. Bruno. Sorry if I'm saying your last name incorrectly, but Mourrain. Bruno. Maureen.
Shout out to Bruno.
In the winner's circle as well. Really excited about that. But like you said, I mean, my goodness, Daniel, we're going to have to think of some sort of prize, some sort of swag or something we can send you. If you go the rest of the season, perfect. I mean, you deserve something, right? So, yeah, just so you guys have some context, like Glenn was saying, we do this challenge in every pregame episode and let you know, this one particularly was which one of our receivers was going to lead the team in receiving. Daniel is now a 3-time champion, so keep it rolling. Glenn and I were both wrong. Yep. But anyway, so what we'll do is we'll get into some stats of this blowout, and then we'll get into some health.
Yeah, and I'll start with the losing team, the Jaguars. Gardner Minshew goes 22 of 29 for 226 and 2 touchdowns. So not a bad game from Gardner.
I feel bad for that kid.
Yeah, he was sacked 5 times. He was being harassed. I mean, that pass rush was back for Baltimore after a down week last week with only 1 sack. They certainly bounced back. As far as on the ground, their talented back, James Robinson, was really bottled up. Just 16 carries for 35 yards, and I believe he left the game in the fourth quarter from an injury.
Yeah.
Really not much of a factor on the ground. Now, he did have a nice catch, which I'll get into later. DJ Chark leads them in receiving with 4 catches for 53 yards. Eifert, familiar name, back from his Bengal days, has 3 for 51. Laviska Shenault, 5 for 43. And as I mentioned, James Robinson with really the play of the day for the Jags, a beautiful over-the-shoulder catch for a touchdown that Gardner put on the money, which was really their lone offensive highlight, in my opinion. Fantastic play, so shout out to them for that. But that was pretty much it. Let me get into Baltimore, where, man, they had a day offensively, Jimbo. Lamar Jackson goes 17 of 22 for 243 yards, 3 touchdowns, and he did have the 1 pick. He was sacked 1 time. Huntley even pitched in 2 out of 4 for 7 yards as he made his way into the game like you predicted.
Ew.
That's right. As far as rushing attack, J.K. Dobbins leads the team in carries, Jimmy. We've been asking for this.
Finally.
A running back leading the team. Only 4 carries ahead of Lamar, but we'll take it. J.K. goes 14 for 64 yards and a touchdown. Your boy Gus Edwards pitches in 9 for 42, so he's still getting it done in a relatively limited carry capacity. And then, of course, Lamar Jackson, 10 for 35 and the touchdown, and then Huntley pitching in 4 for 18. Now, as far as receiving goes, as we mentioned, Daniel was correct to predict that Marquise Brown would lead our team, and he did that with 6 catches for 98 yards. And Mark Andrews, second on the team, 5 catches, 66 yards, and a touchdown. And then Gus Edwards was 3rd on the team, Jimmy. 2 catches, 36 yards. Of course, that was the big one was at the end for 34 yards.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, I mean, but the one I want to talk about the most, the one I was most excited to see, the one catch I was most happy and proud to see, Dez Bryant throwing up the X, getting back in the end zone. He only has the 1 catch, but it is an 11-yard touchdown. And, man, that was cool to see him get back in there. I'm sure he was hyped.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what I liked about that play is that it seems like while in a limited capacity, he understands, and this could be based on the fact that he's experienced with quarterbacks that hold the ball a little longer, where Tony would run around back there and do a lot of ad-lib stuff. But he came to the end of his route, got his head around, saw that Lamar was was improvising a little bit, and he knew what to do. So that was encouraging to see. It wasn't just the touchdown, which was obviously awesome, great story, but the way that it was done, where he's at the end of his route, turned around, broke open again, made that great catch. I was super happy to see that. Couldn't be more happy for a guy.
And what was cool too, Jimmy, is that he was open early on that play.
Yeah, early.
Exactly. And Lamar wasn't able to get to him because he was under some pressure. And then after he was able to roll out, I agree with you. I like the fact that Dez kept working, worked back to his quarterback, and it was a nice play by Lamar getting it to him. So really great on both parts. As far as health goes, Jimmy, really a pretty clean game outside of the one play at the end or near the end where Tyree Phillips picks up the fumble by Lamar. And man, we might have to give this guy some looks at running back.
Or fullback at least.
This guy shot out of there like a rocket and ends up getting pretty lit up. But turned it into a first down. And wow, I mean, that was one of the more surprising plays I've seen.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll tell you what, he did end up getting lit up. But the first guy that tried to take a crack at him paid the real price to me. I mean, that guy not only got ran over, road graded, but his pride got destroyed. I mean, that was pretty bad. So,
but we will say that Tyree Phillips left the game with a concussion. So he got lit up pretty good too.
Yeah.
And hopefully he'll be back for next week, since it seems like him and Fluker have kind of a timeshare at right tackle.
A timeshare. Yeah, that's absolutely true. So yeah, I mean, like you said, relatively healthy. Obviously, we had some big names miss the game, which we weren't necessarily projecting at the very beginning. Calais Campbell, of course, missed. Marcus Peters missed. A healthy scratch. And Jimmy Smith missed. A healthy scratch, though. Mark Ingram missed as well. That was an interesting one to me, most certainly. And hopefully he's still in it and staying upbeat. And, because we love Mark around these here pots. And, so hopefully he hangs in there. But, that was definitely a surprise to me. I think they made some defensive adjustments, and that's what it came down to. Because, look, the third guy, if you're only going to run with three running backs, you got to have those two. And Justice is now, a mainstay on the special teams. So it is what it is, man.
I never thought I would say that Justice would deserve to be the third active back over Ingram, but you're right, because the other two are performing so well as the number 1 and 2 guys. And if you're going to have a third back, he's got to do more than just run the ball and catch the ball out of the backfield. He's got to perform on special teams. And Justice Hill has proven to be a heck of a special teams performer. And obviously they're not going to ask Ingram to go out there and be a gunner.
Right.
So it only makes sense, but still surprising nonetheless. And I think you're right. I think the defensive, the people that were missing on defense really made it more necessary to bring up guys on that side of the ball, and they could afford to be a little light at running back. So, but nonetheless, surprising to see him being a healthy scratch, especially after last week. He was pretty much a healthy scratch last week. He had the one touch that he pitched back to Lamar, and it was over. But I want to talk about Lamar, Jimmy, because I feel like this is the most comfortable I've seen Lamar. And I guess I just have one question. Was this, Lamar getting back into form, or was this how bad the Jacksonville Jaguars are made him look? Because he looked so comfortable and confident back there.
If last week's game looked different, if we would have won that game in a different fashion or lost it or whatever the case may be, I would have answered this question differently. But I would have said it's just bad Jags. But I say it's both bad Jags, but it's also an opportunity for Lamar to show that he's continuing to progress and still round into form, right? Like, I feel like, the past couple of weeks, his decisiveness in the run game has started to emerge. Maybe that's because of the consistency and the health on the offensive line, but I also think he's doing less east and west, doing more north and south, making his decisions faster. But what was missing, we saw it last week, that big pass against Andrews, that big play against Andrews was, that overthrow was significant. It wasn't a close one, it was a couple yards. So it seemed like that was one phase where Lamar needed to continue to round into form. And I feel like today, obviously he did it in the air. While he did damage on the ground, most of his damage was in the air. So I guess the way I'd answer that question is, I think it's Lamar rounding into form. And gosh dang it, if the Dolphins win out, every team in the AFC is going to count their lucky stars if we don't get in the playoffs. I tell you what, because no one wants to see us right now.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. That's a good point. Especially if we finish this season on a 5-game win streak.
Yeah.
Which right now they're riding a 3-gamer and they're going to be favored in the last 2. I agree with you. I think teams are going to be afraid to play this team. And really, I think that the place it starts, Jimmy, is up front. That offensive line, Jimmy, has looked absolutely dominant the last couple games. And really it's coming from surprising places, in my opinion. You had an interesting note on Ben Powers. What was that?
Yeah, so Ben Powers right now is leading the NFL in win percentage as a guard at 81%. That was previous to this game, so it could have altered slightly, but I doubt it based on the outcome of the game.
Yeah.
But number one in the NFL, and he had no idea that he was like, oh, he was caught off guard by that. Yeah, but pretty awesome. So you're right, definitely coming from surprising places. But you know what? That's what championship teams do, right? Surprises come up. When they face adversity, guys fill in and exceed expectations. I think every year when a team wins a Super Bowl, you will see 2 or 3 or maybe 4 positions where there are surprises. So I think it's something that we're happy to see, and I'm excited about moving forward. But I had a question for you, Glenn, in that drive where, of course, we go down, we throw the interception, we turn around, get the safety, we go up 2-0, and then we're in the red zone. Let's see, what was that off of? Was that off of an interception or a fumble when Boykin scores the touchdown, or was that off an interception?
I'm not sure exactly.
Or was that just us coming down the field? I think that was just. Yeah, I think that was just us coming down the field. Anyway, the point is that Boykin finally showed off that frame. He high pointed that ball. I mean, he went up and got it and showed off that catch radius. I would like to know, Glenn Martin, what was your take on Boykin stretching out there using that 6'4" frame? Were you happy to finally see it, or did it not mean as much because he wasn't in traffic?
That's something I've been waiting for him to do, is to make that catch over someone. We saw Andrews do that over the middle. He caught the ball and Schobert's arm at the same time and took them both to the ground. And that's what I've been wanting to see, that high point, that mossing, if you will. But it was a nice play. He kept working. It was kind of, I'd actually say it was a nicer play by Lamar. It was a beautiful play. He sat in the pocket and threw it to the place where only his receiver could get it. But look, Miles Boykin adjusted to the ball. He went up and got it and hung on to it. So, shout out to him. It was his only catch. It was a 4-yard touchdown. But, I think that Miles Boykin still has a long way to go as far as becoming a productive, consistent receiving threat. But that's a good step in the right direction. Right?
And I will say this. I think I could be totally wrong, but I feel like there's been a little bit more of a fire lit under him since Dez has been on the team. And I don't know if it's just because he's afraid of losing his spot as much as it could be. Maybe the tutelage of Dez, or just watching Dez's physicality, is hopefully something that Boykin is learning from. So we'll hope that that's the case and he continues to progress. But like you talked about, man, it's funny because it turns into a pedestrian game, not pedestrian, but a relatively expected game by Andrews. But I think he had five catches, a touchdown, and had some great plays in there. That catch was incredible, right?
Yeah, Schobert, him and Miles Jack are clearly the best 2 players on their defense. And he was he was having his way. Those are the 2 guys that were tasked a lot to guard him, and he showed out. He looked. It's funny because it was very similar play that Lamar overshot him, and this time, man, he maybe underthrew him a little bit, but Andrews was not letting that ball hit the ground. He caught all 5 of his targets today. Really, there's not much you can say bad about the offense this week. They were really, really good. Kind of surprising, though, Jimmy. I got to give you a little bit of grief. You predicted Willie Snead would lead our team in receptions.
Yeah.
The man had 1 target, no catches.
Yeah, that was bad. That was a bad prediction. I fell flat on my face on that one. I guessed wrong. And I don't know why that is. I noticed that they were trying to, Dez had 3 targets. They were trying to make more of a concerted effort to get Dez involved. Not saying that did everything to take away from Willie Snead, but that was definitely, an interesting, like you said, an interesting note to me. But I'll tell you what, we need Hollywood to show up like he did. We need Andrews to keep being consistent like he has been. But if we can get between Boykin, Snead, Duvernay, and Dez, if we can get the production of a 3rd player in there, we're going to be dangerous. Gosh dang it, Glenn. I'm telling you, if Miami wins out and we don't get the playoffs, I'm going to lose my mind.
If the Ravens don't make the playoffs with 11 wins and there's 3 wildcard teams, that's insane. Normally 10 wins gets it in the playoffs when there's, 2 wildcards. This year they expand it. And that would be shocking, but we'll cross that bridge when we have to.
Yeah. One more question.
A little bit about
Oh, before we switch over to the defense, I want to get your take on Greg Roman getting fired up. Do you like seeing that on the camera, getting fired up there at the end of the first quarter? Weren't able to get that play off in time. What did you think of his emotional reaction? I liked it.
I was a little surprised. I mean, I don't know if it was maybe just Lamar losing track of the play clock, or I mean, I'm sorry, of the clock in general, or if the play was late to get in, or whatever the cause was. But man, that was a little surprising to see him show that much frustration. I know he's in the booth; it's not like he's on the sideline throwing his headset, but he's got to know there's a camera on him. I mean, I was a little surprised, but I think it's kind of cool. I mean, they have a great relationship. It's not like it's a contentious relationship. And if Lamar hears that Giro kind of lost his temper there, that he's going to get offended, I honestly think I agree with you. I think it was kind of cool, but surprising because, look, we know what Roman does in every press conference. He's the best at saying a billion words and saying nothing.
All right.
So it's just odd to see him give any type of – I mean, he had to know that's going to be on camera. So just anything to give to the media is kind of surprising. But yeah, it was interesting, like, because I mean, we ended up scoring anyway, and it was I think first down, or it was second down.
It was first down.
First?
Yeah.
So it's not like, I mean, it's a little bit of an overreaction, but nonetheless, no harm, no foul.
Yeah, and I like it, and I think the way that him and Lamar both view it is that any onus you can give Lamar, he's got to take upon himself as well. Just like you said, if he would have got to play in sooner, then maybe Lamar, say for example, Lamar lost track of the clock. Well, yeah, maybe we would have had some more leeway if he got in sooner. I think they have a good relationship, so they take it as a team approach. And he probably was, mad at himself, even if he wasn't mad at Lamar at the same time. I just like seeing the accountability, that they have. Hopefully, I feel like that they have for one another as an offense, as a team. They really wanted to punch that in, and he's excited about that play. I guarantee that's their number one play in the red zone, and we will see it again. Oh
yeah, I mean, he walked in, but of course we don't know if they heard the whistle. Who knows what would happen? It could have been a tackle for no gain there. I mean, we saw it after the play where he walked in, but we don't know how many Jags players had heard the whistle and stopped playing. So I want to talk about on the defensive side of the ball. A guy, Patrick Queen's had some up and down moments this season, but I thought he had a really nice game. He led our team with 3 tackles for loss, had a big sack on 4th down.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I thought it was a nice bounce back game for him. And I mean, I was happy with his performance. What'd you think?
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I was super happy with his performance. One thing I'll say that I've noticed as a theme is that every quarterback that gets in a situation where they're trying to evade Patrick Queen, unless even if they prepared for him, but if they haven't, they all underestimate his speed. I think that Gardner Minshew really thought, I'm relatively athletic. I can beat this guy to the corner. And Patrick Queen's thinking, dude, this is cake. I mean, there's no way this guy's outrunning me, right? But I think that there's a multitude of examples where his athleticism has shown throughout the season. And that was just another one. That was awesome because he made up ground like that. I mean, it was like, when you're a kid and you do something bad, you think you can run away from your parents because you think you're super fast. And your dad's like, did you forget I'm a grown adult? Right?
Yeah. You got some new shoes, maybe?
Yeah,
you got some new shoes? You're like, you ain't catching me today, Dad.
I got my light ups on. There's no way you're catching me. And then, he takes 3 steps and he just scoops you up by your arm and you're like, what? Your legs are still moving in the air, all of it.
Yeah.
But, that's what it was like to me. I mean, he made up ground. As soon as he made up his mind to commit to Gardner, that's what it, that's how quickly he made up ground. But the other thing I want to talk about on defense is, Calais was out, but Wolf and Williams came up big today. Was Brandon Williams not all over the field?
And what's crazy is it's not like he was it's almost like every time I saw him making the tackle, he was tackling the running back and still engaged with a lineman at the same time. I mean, this guy, he's one of the more underrated and unsung heroes on our team. But it's just no doubt when he's in the game, it's a big difference than when he's out. I mean, he is a big contributor to our good, when we have a good run defense. He's a big reason why. But let me ask you, Calais was not active this game. Last game he was, and I think we can all agree he wasn't 100% Calais. He was clearly a shell of himself dealing with that injury. But the Browns ran all over us. This week. No Calais. Brandon's back. Wolf's in there. And we pretty much shut down the 4th. I think he was 4th in the league from scrimmage yards coming into this game. What are your thoughts on – do you think it's just because Calais hasn't been healthy and that we're maybe putting him in there when he's not ready? Like, why the better performance when he's out?
That's a great question. I think part of it, there's a lot. It's multifaceted, like my answer, because the Browns have such a their pass.
Your mic changed.
It changed.
Oh, now it's better.
All right. Well, we're back in business.
Yeah, sorry about that.
No, so I think the Browns have a more respectable passing game, like passing attack, to where you can't just say, well, I'm going to go after Chubb. I'm going to go after Kareem Hunt. And then on top of that, Kareem is a big contributor in the passing game and in the running game. I think it's just harder to shut down those two. So that's in comparison to Jacksonville, where you can say, all right, we're going to take out Robinson and make Gardner Minshew beat us, right? I think that's part of it. But I don't think we're ever worse with Calais in there, even when he's hobbled. It's just hard for me to fathom that. I think more of it has to do with the personnel on the field. I think the Browns are just that much of a better team. I don't know. It's hard for me to think of us being worse without him. Maybe I know you said this before, like in the past, like, when a big player goes down, you'll see the next week the team kind of ticks up the intensity because they're trying to, compensate for that. Maybe there's a little bit of that going on every time Calais is out. But I don't know. It's just hard for me to think of a world in which we're better with him on the sideline, even if he's 75%.
Yeah, no, I tend to agree with you. I think it's more that offensive line for the Browns is just really, really good. And then they got the two best, they have the best running back tandem in the league. Right.
Behind Gus and Dobbins, of course.
Yeah, of course. But one other defensive question I had for you, I was kind of surprised. I don't think Humphrey had a bad game at all.
Right.
But anytime your cornerback leads your team in tackles, typically means he's being thrown at a lot. So how surprised were you? Peters is out. Jimmy Smith's out. We see Devontae
Harris goes out.
He goes out with a thigh, and yet they're still throwing the ball in Humphrey's direction. I mean, and they were making some plays on him. I mean, even though he was there, he had some plays made on him. How surprised were you that they were still attacking Humphrey despite a depleted secondary?
I was surprised, absolutely. But the other thing I will say is that Marlon, if there's one knock on his game, it's just tracking the ball when it's in the air, right? Like that's a couple times, like the pass in the end zone in the fourth quarter, it was a PI. You could tell he got a little caught up, right? Like he got a little turned around. His timing was off. Not saying Marlon is an all-pro. I'm not knocking Marlon Humphrey. Please, no one grill me for saying that Marlon Humphrey isn't one of the top two corners in the NFL, top three at the worst. But if there is any knock on his game, I think it's just that. So I'll be interested. I was surprised, but I'll be interested to see how many other teams want to keep testing that. Right?
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see once we get our full complement of corners back as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, it interesting nonetheless, just from the sample, you think that they want to attack a more weak.
Now let me ask you a question that I think I know the answer to. But I'll throw it to you anyway. This doesn't happen very often. Justin Tucker missed a field goal, 57-yarder, but he missed it. You concerned at all?
Well, I'm not concerned, but look, I've always been the guy that wants Tucker to get that chance to break the record, but he never seems to get the opportunity to trot out there in a late game situation or a blowout situation where he can try one from 64. But he's not going to get much confidence in the coaches if he keeps missing these bombs. I know he's the only ones he's missed. I mean, he did miss the one last week, but typically the ones he misses are these monsters, these huge kicks. But I want to see him break that daggone record. So the only way he's going to get the opportunity from the coaching staff is he hits these monsters, these 57 yards that he gets a rare opportunity to try. So I was just a little bummed that he missed it, just from the standpoint is I don't think it'll lead to more opportunities from further out. That's all.
I think that what it'll come down to, a big part of the context for him being able to be given that opportunity will be, I don't think it'll ever happen at home because of the crosswind.
That's true.
But if we're ever in that situation, like the Lions or somewhere else where they're in a dome, I could definitely see it. But yeah, it was surprising to me. I'm not worried about him either. Another high point of the game is we only had 4 penalties for 40 yards. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, we didn't have a penalty through the first 3 quarters of the game, which is pretty awesome. I mean, we played a pretty clean game. We want to see that because, look, going into the playoffs, we've seen that one penalty. Who was it? Wasn't that in the New England Chiefs game, the first time they went up against each other in the AFC Championship game, when one of their guys jumped off, one of the Chiefs defenders jumps offside, and Tom Brady threw an interception, so the play was called dead. This one play.
Well, I think that you're right. They only had 4 penalties. That's a plus. That's a win for the Ravens, who typically lately have been averaging about 8.
Yeah.
But I will say this: that one penalty in the fourth quarter from Ferguson on the late hit, the roughing. If this was a close game, that took 7 points off the board, Jimbo.
Yeah,
LJ Fort
man.
walked in on that easy pick six, and it was a stupid play. It was a late hit, clearly late. And not only did he hit him late, he hit him high. He did a double whammy.
Dumb play.
So yeah, it was a better game from a point of a penalty standpoint. But if that game was close, that would have been an impactful, and it's still a play. It took points off the board nonetheless. So, I'm still not thrilled with it. It was really a bonehead play. It wasn't like he was knocked over into him or not. He just got greedy and wanted to hit the guy. So, not thrilled with it, but as a whole, absolutely thrilled with them playing a much cleaner game. And really, like you said, the fourth quarter, it was more backup. Like Ferguson wasn't getting important minutes in the first two, 3 quarters. He was in there because the game was over and in hand. But I agree with you. Now I want you to give you a second to talk about your guy, because I know you're happy. This is your it's your guy. You came from a University of Utah graduate over here, and you got to see your guy,
That's
Tyler
right.
Huntley, finally get in some action, and didn't look too bad, Jimbo.
No, he didn't look bad, and I think if he were given more opportunities, honestly, I think he would have shown out even more. Obviously the run was great, and this is the thing about Tyler Huntley that you will learn that I can definitively say right now. Number one, he will be our backup quarterback next year. Of that, I have no doubt. All you Trace McSorley fans, I like Trace. Tyler Huntley in this draft would have been drafted higher, much higher. The problem, he wasn't drafted at all. The problem was, of course, just strictly his medical. He had some lingering issues with the knee and the shoulder, and they weren't able to get a hold of him, right, to get their hands on him because of COVID, and that shot him right down the board. But let me remind you, like they said on the television, first team all Pac-12 last year, led us to one of the best seasons in our school history. An incredible player, had over 60 touchdowns to 20, between rushing and passing to I think only 20 interceptions as a starting quarterback for the Utes. And look, I can definitively say he will be our backup quarterback next year. He will beat out Trace McSorley. And you will be surprised by his arm talent. I'm not saying, obviously, he's not Lamar Jackson. Don't get it twisted. But I'm excited that we will have a very good backup in a pinch for a few games. I think better than we've had in a few years. So he'll be our backup next year, and I'm excited about it. I think he's a player, man.
Yeah, and he comes cheaper price tag than RG3 as well, which is always nice because.
Well, then even Trace at this point, right?
Yeah, no doubt. Now I would be surprised to see the Ravens only keep 2 quarterbacks next year, but so I think 3 will eventually make it. But look, we can talk about that when it gets a little closer. But yeah, I want to talk about players of the game, and I'm going to give us. I'm going to start. I got to go with my man Patrick Queen on defense. I thought he played phenomenal. He, like I said, he led the team in tackles for loss with 3. He did have the sack, and then he also had 6 total tackles for the day. I thought he looked good. He thought he looked fast, and I think he would have gotten more stats had the game been closer and he'd been in the game a little bit more often. So Patrick Queen's my defensive player. How about yours?
So I finally got it right. I stuck with him, and he came through. I have omitted to mention Yannick Ngakoue to this point because I was holding out for this moment. I picked him to be my big game player of the game with 2 sacks and a strip sack. I also got greedy and said that strip sack was going to get returned for a touchdown. Nonetheless, he got 2 sacks and a strip sack. So I'm going to give myself some credit for that one and take that to the bank. So he is my defensive player of the game. Who you got on offense?
That was impressive, Jim.
Yeah, that was awesome.
You pretty much nailed it. If you wouldn't have gotten greedy at the very end, you would have nailed it. But offensively, it's got to be Lamar Jackson. The guy was sensational. Outside of the ball that got picked off that he threw to Hollywood that was a little late and behind, he pretty much was perfect other than that. He did have the fumble at the end, but that the guy was incredible. 17 to 22, 243, 3 touchdowns. And then he adds 10 for 35 and another touchdown on the ground. 4 total touchdowns. What else can you say, Jimbo? The guy was incredible. It's the most comfortable I've seen him look all season. And it's exciting to know that the offense is starting to peak at the right time, Jimbo.
Yeah, absolutely. And man, I keep saying this, but hopefully we're given that opportunity to show out. But my offensive player is exactly the same. I can't say anything different. Lamar Jackson is shown at the right time. And I hope that Hollywood and him continue to increase their chemistry and their connection. And hopefully we'll see some more of those deep shots. But you guys let us know who's your offensive player of the game, defensive player of the game, and huge shout out to Lorenzo Taliaferro and his family. Of course, the tragic news on a serious note, nothing but prayers and thoughts for, his family and loved ones. But look, let us know what your thoughts are on this game. Give us all your insight, what you're excited about for the next week. Send all your bad juju to the Dolphins and the Browns and anyone else that's in front of us. And we'll talk to you guys soon.
See you.